All right, diving right in, folks. Today, we're going deep into some pretty wild stuff that went down in the NFT and crypto world.
Wild is putting it mildly.
And for this deep dive, we're using Nifty Noon's Substack as our guide.
Nifty Noon, yeah, they're great.
Yeah, they're run by this awesome team. You've got at Axuith, at Minted, at Drethernich, at Speedy Gonzalez 87, and at SSPXLEO.
They really know their stuff, and the week we're looking at, March 3rd to the 7th, 2025, was a total roller coaster.
We're kidding. We're talking about the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve being born, meme coins going bonkers, and even maybe some market manipulation. Pretty juicy, right? So let's kick things off with Nifty Noon's post from March 3rd. It's called Donald Trump's Strategic Crypto Reserve Saves the Market.
Catchy title, for sure. And the thing is, Trump announced this on Truth Social, you know?
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and called crypto a critical industry. He was laying out this plan for a strategic reserve, and get this, it was going to be based on Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and Cardano.
Hold up. XRP and Cardano. Back in 2025, that must raise some eyebrows, right?
Oh, absolutely. Nifty Noon did a great job showing the mixed reactions. You know, some people thought it was this power move, a way to make those coins legit. But others weren't so sure.
Makes sense. What were they worried about?
Well, they questioned, the liquidity of XRP and ADA, especially with that whole SEC lawsuit hanging over XRP. And there was this one whale who made, $6.8 million.
Whoa, hold on. $6.8 million from this.
Yeah, by closing their leveraged long positions right before Trump's announcement. So Nifty Noon asked this really good question. Was this just, amazing timing, or was there insider info going on?
Oh, that's kind of shady. Did Nifty Noon look into that at all?
They did. They pointed out that this whale's wallet had ties to known phishing scams, and there were other wallets doing similar stuff, with the same red flags, making these aggressive moves right before the news dropped. It definitely makes you wonder if someone had the inside scoop, you know what I mean?
Huh? Yeah, if those wallets were linked to, less than legal stuff, that throws a whole different light on things, doesn't it? What was the real reason for the reserve?
Absolutely. And keep in mind, this was only day one of this crazy week. Things just got wilder from here.
Okay, well, let's jump to March 4th then. Nifty Noon's post is titled, Is Donald Trump's Cabal Manipulating the Crypto Market? Whoa, that's a pretty intense title.
It's definitely eye-catching, and Nifty Noon was laying it all out there. Remember that initial pump after the crypto reserve news? Yeah, it fizzled out fast.
So the excitement died down quickly.
Totally. The market went bearish, and everyone was suspicious. And then, boom, Trump announces these new tariffs out of nowhere. Stock market tanks, crypto market tanks, and guess who was ready to cash in?
Let me guess. Those same shady wallets.
I got it. They'd gone short this time, perfectly timed to profit from the crash. Nifty Noon really captured that sense of unease, like something wasn't right.
Okay, so we've got a controversial crypto reserve, a pump and dump that looks suspicious, and maybe even some coordinated market manipulation. This is getting heavy.
It was, but before we dive into the rest of this drama, let's shift gears for a second. Nifty Noon's post on March 5th was titled, Nifty Noon BLUB launch saves the memcoin trenches Arella Oko. It's about meme coins.
Meme coins. In the middle of all of this. Guess even with market manipulation possibly happening, meme coins got a meme. So what happened with BLUB?
Well, it launched on the Avalanche blockchain and, according to Nifty Noon, almost hit a $10 million market cap. It followed a similar path to other Avalanche meme coins like Kets and Quink,
So even with all this serious stuff going down, meme coins were still booming.
For sure. Nifty Noon even had a nifty thought about it, calling out people who sold their Quink allocations after the pre-sale right away. It showed this interesting dynamic in the community, that fear of missing out versus, wanting to make a quick buck.
Yeah, that's a classic crypto dilemma, isn't it? When do you hold and when do you fold?
Exactly. But let's circle back to the main event. The strategic reserve drama wasn't over yet. In fact, things were just heating up.
All right, bring on the heat. March 6th. What did Nifty Noon have to say in their post-criteria? What should Donald Trump put into the U.S. Crypto Strategic Reserve Earth?
So the first U.S. crypto summit was coming up, and everyone wanted Trump to, lay out his plan. People were demanding transparency, questioning how he chose the coins for the reserve, the whole process.
It wasn't just about XRP and ADA anymore, huh?
Nope, it was about the whole system. And here's where it gets interesting. Even the founders of Solana, whose coin was initially in, started saying they wanted clear guidelines.
Really? even though they benefited from it at first.
Yep. They argued that the reserve had to be legit, it needed a transparent process, regardless of whether SOL was included or not.
Wow, so even those who were winning at first wanted a more open and accountable approach.
They did. And Nifty Noon agreed. They argued Bitcoin should be the base, maybe with Ethereum and possibly Solana too, but only if they met clear standards like market cap, liquidity, and a proven track record.
So a data-driven approach, not just picking favorites.
Exactly. And no surprise, Nifty Noon was still skeptical of XRP and ADA, bringing up those worries about liquidity and potential backroom deals.
Sounds like Nifty Noon was pushing for a more transparent and responsible approach to this whole strategic reserve thing.
Absolutely. They understood that the legitimacy of the reserve and how it could affect the crypto market depended on clear rules and fairness.
Well, after all that buildup, we finally get to the climax on March 7th with Nifty Noon's post. The U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve is here Shosha?
Trump actually signed an executive order, becoming the first U.S. president to establish a Bitcoin strategic reserve. It was a big deal.
So after all the back and forth, all the debate, he actually did it. That's huge.
It was a turning point for Bitcoin. The U.S. government was recognizing it as a strategic asset, a major win for the OG crypto. But of course, it wasn't simple.
I bet. What were some of the details of the executive order?
Well, it had some interesting parts. Existing government Bitcoin holdings were protected from sale, which makes sense. But buying more Bitcoin had to be budget neutral.
Budget neutral. That sounds like government talk. What does that even mean?
Basically, they couldn't just print more money to buy Bitcoin. Any new purchases had to be balanced by cuts somewhere else or by bringing in more money. Think of it like a household budget. You can't just magically get more money for something new. You got to cut back somewhere or earn more.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So no Bitcoin shopping spree without thinking about the finances. Smart, but also kind of limiting, right?
Exactly. They were dipping their toes into Bitcoin, but with a safety net.
So how did they plan to get around that budget neutrality rule? Was there a trick up their sleeve?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. The executive order also created something called the U.S. Digital Assets Stockpile, which would hold other government-owned cryptocurrencies like ETH and SOL.
Wait, a separate stash for altcoins? What was that about?
That's where the speculation started. People thought the government might sell these altcoins to buy more Bitcoin, like a clever workaround for that budget neutrality thing.
So like a crypto shell game, use altcoins to stack more sats. Pretty sneaky. Did it work, though? What did the market think about all this?
Well, it was a mixed bag, as you can imagine. You had the Bitcoin maxes celebrating, right? The U.S. government was basically saying, hey, Bitcoin's a strategic asset. Big win for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I bet they were stoked. Government recognition is a big deal.
Huge. But some people thought the government wasn't going far enough. They wanted more enthusiasm in the buying plans. Texas, for example, was working on its own Bitcoin reserve, and they were seen as more gung-ho about it.
So not everyone thought this was the Bitcoin revolution they'd hoped for. Some wanted the U.S. to go all in, no holding back.
Exactly. Some saw it as a step forward. Others wanted a giant leap. But no matter what people thought, it was a big moment for crypto. Nifty Noon really showed all the different viewpoints and how important this was.
It's wild how Nifty Noon tied in the meme coin craze with this huge government move. It shows how diverse and unpredictable this space is. Meme coins blowing up while we've got national reserves and maybe market manipulation happening.
That's what makes crypto so fascinating. You never know what's going to be the next big thing. And that's why resources like Nifty Noon are so valuable. They help us understand this crazy, ever-changing world.
Speaking of understanding, we've covered a lot in this deep dive. Meme coins, market manipulation, the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve being born. This week from Nifty Noon's archive has been a wild ride.
It really has. It shows how much can change so quickly in the crypto world.
So before we wrap up, what are some key takeaways our listeners should remember from this deep dive?
I think the biggest one is how much governments are influencing crypto now. Agree or disagree with Trump's choices that U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve had a huge impact, and it sparked a lot of debate.
Yeah, it really showed that crypto isn't in the shadows anymore. Governments are paying attention, and they're starting to exert their power.
Exactly. And another key takeaway is how important transparency and clear rules are, especially with something as important as a national reserve. The whole XRP and ADA debate showed how important it is to avoid even the appearance of, shady dealings.
Transparency builds trust, and trust is crucial in the crypto world given its history of scams and questionable stuff.
Exactly. And lastly, this whole thing reminds us that crypto is super dynamic and unpredictable. One day it's meme coins taking off, the next it's governments making Bitcoin reserves.
It's always changing, and that's what makes it so exciting. It's a world of innovation and disruption.
It's a world that needs our attention and our critical thinking. And that brings me to a final thought-provoking question this deep dive has raised for me.
All right, hit us with it. What's the big question on your mind?
What does the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve and governments getting more involved in crypto mean for the future of this industry? Will it help it grow or hold it back? Will we see more regulation and control, or will it lead to more innovation and adoption?
Whoa, those are some big questions, and I think everyone in this space needs to think about them. The future of crypto is still being written, and we all have a role in shaping it.
Exactly. This deep dive has given us a look into the past, but it also raises important questions about the future. That's what's so cool about exploring crypto. There's always something new to learn, something to think about, something to debate.
Well said. It's time for us to come up for air from this deep dive, but I encourage everyone to keep exploring these questions and stay curious about the always changing world of crypto.
Absolutely. The more we learn, the better we'll be able to handle its complexity and make informed decisions about how we participate in this fascinating space.
And a huge thank you to Nifty Noon for their insightful content. You can find their Substack at niftynoon.substack.com. We highly recommend subscribing to their daily updates to stay ahead of the game in the NFT and crypto world. And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand this space, the better we can navigate its complexities and harness its potential.
I couldn't agree more. This deep dive has only scratched the surface of NFTs and crypto. There's a whole universe of innovation and disruption out there.
So to our awesome listeners, stay curious, stay informed, and never stop diving deep into the things that interest you.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring. Who knows, you might discover the next big thing in crypto.
Yeah, and it could be used to, like top up the Bitcoin holdings without breaking that budget rule.
Oh, I see. So it's like a clever way to keep adding to the Bitcoin reserve without, actually spending more money directly.
Yeah.
Did that strategy work out? What was the market's reaction to all of this? Well, as you can imagine, it was a mixed bag. Some people were thrilled, especially the Bitcoin maximalists. The U.S. government was basically saying, hey, Bitcoin is a valuable asset. It was a huge validation for them.
Yeah, I bet they were popping champagne.
Yeah.
Government recognition is a big deal.
It is. But there were also those who felt like the government wasn't being aggressive enough. They wanted to see, more commitment, a bolder approach. They pointed to Texas, which was also creating its own Bitcoin reserve, and they were a lot more enthusiastic about it.
So not everyone was convinced that this was the Bitcoin revolution they'd been waiting for. They wanted the U.S. to go all in, no hesitation.
Exactly. Some saw it as a positive step, while others were hoping for a giant leap forward. But no matter what people thought, it was a historic moment for crypto. Nifty Noon did a fantastic job of capturing all those different viewpoints and showing just how significant this was.
It's fascinating how they were able to tie in the meme coin frenzy with this monumental government action. It really highlights the dynamic and often unpredictable nature of this space. We had these meme coins, seemingly just for fun, existing alongside these serious discussions about national reserves and potentially even market manipulation. It's wild.
That's what makes the crypto world so captivating, right? You never know what's going to grab the headlines next. And that's why resources like Nifty Noon are so valuable. They help us make sense of this complex and constantly evolving world.
And speaking of making sense of things, we've certainly covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From meme coins to market manipulation to the birth of the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, this week in Nifty Noon's archive has been quite a journey.
It really has. It just goes to share how quickly things can change in the crypto world.
So before we wrap things up, what are some key takeaways that our listeners should keep in mind from this deep dive?
I think one of the most important takeaways is the growing influence of governments in the crypto space. Whether you agree with Trump's decisions or not, the creation of the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve had a significant impact on the market and generated a lot of debate and discussion.
Yeah, it really signaled that crypto is no longer operating under the radar, so to speak. Governments are paying attention, and they're starting to flex their muscles.
Absolutely. And another key takeaway is the importance of transparency and clear guidelines, especially when it comes to something as impactful as a national reserve. The initial controversy surrounding the choice of coins highlighted the importance of avoiding even the slightest hint of impropriety.
Transparency builds trust, and trust is essential in the crypto world, given its history of scams and uh, questionable activities.
Exactly. And lastly, this whole saga reminds us that the crypto world is incredibly dynamic and unpredictable. One day, it's meme coins exploding in popularity. The next, it's governments establishing Bitcoin reserves. It keeps us on our toes.
It certainly does. It's a constantly evolving landscape, and that's what makes it so exciting. It's a space where innovation and disruption are the norm.
It's a space that demands our attention and our critical thinking. It challenges us to stay informed and engaged.
Well said. Well, it's time for us to resurface from this particular deep dive. But I encourage everyone to continue exploring these topics and to stay curious about the ever-changing world of crypto.
Absolutely. The more we learn, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this complex landscape and make informed decisions about our own involvement in this fascinating space.
And a huge thank you to Nifty Noon for providing such insightful content. You can find their Substack at niftynoon.substack.com. We highly recommend subscribing to their daily updates to stay ahead of the curve in the NFT and crypto world. And remember, folks, knowledge is power. The more we understand about this space, the better we can navigate its complexities and harness its potential.
Couldn't agree more. This deep dive has only scratched the surface of what's happening in the world of NFTs and crypto. There's a whole universe of innovation and disruption out there waiting to be explored.
So, to our amazing listeners, keep those curious minds engaged, stay informed, and never stop diving deep into the things that spark your interest.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring. And who knows, maybe you'll discover the next big thing in the world of crypto.